Hi, I'm Andre The Beast, and welcome to another episode of the Andre The Beast Show. This show is going to be very educational, very inspirational as well. We all wonder about that word every day. We hear beast mode, but we never hear the word beast frame of mind. And a lot of that comes when you're dealing with individuals that, let me rephrase it so this makes sense. My message today goes out to what I may call underachievers, but don't take that word to harsh, because I think we all have walked down that path, and the ideal is how do we get out of that pathway? How do we learn to retrain, rethink? Because I'm a firm believer you can reprogram your DNA by actions and repetitive actions. Today on my show, two of my guests have been here before, and let me explain to you why they've been here before. They're not only my guests on the show, but these are individuals that I'm in contact with daily. So a lot of the ideas that I come up with when I'm doing these podcasts is because of the interaction I have with these individuals on a daily basis. And when you're bouncing ideas off of people, you really come up with a interesting idea. And what I've come up with is we all kind of share that same idea, and we have all traveled different paths to get where we have gotten to. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how to I'm going to put it like this, 3 topics that will help deal with the stigma of underachieving and how to reformat and retrain that thought. With that said, 3 of my, I can call you guys my good friends, workout buddies, and you name it. I have Bob, I have Dave, and I have the all but funny Paul. So let's start off like this. Paul and Dave, on the last show, there was an interesting topic that I don't think we really got to address, and the viewers were like, why didn't you guys need to have them back on again? So one topic in particular that they were stressing, and that I'm still curious about, that we didn't address: you achieved something to where you're a successful lawyer, but you walked away from a lot of money from another law firm. Explain to me that transition.
Or maybe the what was going through my mind when I made that decision.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that for the rest of my career, for the rest of my life, people will question why I walked away from that.
How much was it? I think they need to know what you walked away.
No.
Was it 7 figures?
It was quite a bit of money. It was quite a bit of money, but even more than that, it was a title. It was a role that people spend their entire careers pursuing. And it was a role that I had before, but I still walked away from it. And the reason why I walked away from it was quite simple, and that is because I don't think beast mode applies just in the gym. I think beast mode applies to life. And I think if you find yourself in a situation where you can't, for whatever reason, you can't perform in beast mode on a consistent basis, then you should walk away. The firm that I left is a fantastic firm. I don't have anything bad to say about them at all. It's a fantastic firm, and I will certainly do what I can to steer clients that I feel are appropriate fits to that firm, because I think that it's a good solid firm. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like in dating, it's like, it's not you, it's me. Right. It really was. It was me. It was I did not feel like I was in a position where I could perform in that beast mode, in that mode that I needed to be. And really, if I had to put if I had to put sort of meat on that skeleton of not being able to perform in beast mode, it would be, and I think, Bob, you and I have kind of touched upon this a little bit in some of our conversations, sort of going outside your comfort zone and setting goals, setting expectations for yourself, maybe not goals, setting expectations for yourself that go beyond what you know you're capable of doing.
Okay.
I was in a role where I felt like I could, I felt like I could almost dial it in, you know, like it wouldn't be that hard. I could just show up every day and do what I needed to do and collect the accolades and collect the paycheck and all that kind of stuff. But that's not beast mode. Beast mode is pushing yourself a little bit farther and always growing and always learning. And I didn't feel like I was that I was putting myself, regardless of anybody around me, that I was putting myself in a position where I could set those stretch goals.
But that's fascinating to me. Why didn't they create a culture or structure where you could have done that?
Because it was a big firm. Because it was a big firm, and sometimes big firms, firms are like big ships. It takes a long time to turn. And I think I've had enough experience that I recognize that, and I wasn't going to force them to change for me. That would be wrong.
But honestly, it sounds like a culture and leadership failure.
No, I disagree. I disagree. Because again, for me to force them to change, to adapt to my way of thinking, it was just too large of an organization for them to do that. Okay. And it was my recognition of that fact. Doesn't change what I want, right? I can only control this, so that's what I set about to do. But it doesn't change the underlying fact that I wasn't putting myself in a position where I felt like I could perform in beast mode. And I think, I mean, you and I have talked about this to death. Beast mode is not something that's just for the gym. It's for all of life. Mm-hmm. It's a limited time. I'm right now personally. I'm facing issues where I'm realizing sort of the finite aspect of our existence here, and I don't want to waste a second of it. I want to make sure that I squeeze every single last bit out of it, and part of that is setting these goals, Bob, that you and I have talked about, setting these stretch goals that going beyond your comfort level.
Well, I think a lot of times, when you think about beast mode, you can't be afraid to fail. You have to put yourself out there. You have to, look at goals that are uncomfortable. And when you're in an uncomfortable zone or spot, that's when you know that you're beyond normalcy and trying to improve on whatever skills you're trying to achieve. It's like dating. If you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to find someone. And so for me, it's don't be afraid to fail. Put yourself out there, because failure is not trying. And so if you're going to reach a goal, stretch. You may fall short of what your stretch goal is, but you still achieved something more than not trying at all. And so for me, beast mode is going beyond that comfort zone. When you talk about leaders and you talk about companies, it really boils down to this. Leaders will conform to a company culture, and the company culture is what drives every person from an entry-level job to the executive level. And so when you look at entry-level positions, if they're going to conform and you're going to micromanage them to follow and tote the line, they're never going to get in that beast mode of having a stretched goal. Being okay with failure is okay. It's you tried, you extended your comfort zone to the point where you were going to achieve something beyond, that normalcy. And so I just think that companies nowadays have I know this is going to sound really cliche, a cookie cutter way of mentoring and managing people, but you can't be a part of just the normal process. You have to be someone who looks at things, problem solves, and moves things forward, rather than just being that person that comes in, punches the clock and just does their job. And so that's the difference between coming in, working out, stretching yourself from, whatever weight you start at as a baseline, and then you incrementally build up to something heavier and doing it right with the right technique. That's extending yourself in that beast mode to really look at exceeding your objectives and your goals.
I'm glad that you put it back in that frame of the gym, because this is a great example. So we've all heard, and I'm sure if any of the listeners are baseball aficionados, they'll jump all over me. But we've all heard that thing about how Babe Ruth, who for the longest time was the home run hitter, the home run king, also was the guy who led in strikeouts, right? And besides hearing stories like that, who sitting here at this table could say that your successes have outnumbered your failures? I can't.
No way.
I can't. Not by a long shot.
Right. No.
Not by a long shot. But that doesn't mean that you go chasing failure. That doesn't mean that you just go willy-nilly, into the night and just throw caution to the wind and start doing whatever it takes, because you're going to start learning from these failures. That's when we talk about stretch goals, that's not the point of it. The point of it is, using the gym as an example, okay? Maybe not using the gym as an example. I'll back up for a second, okay? When I was younger, and I had a particular passion, I was very passionate about music, okay? And I had an instructor, or I had a teacher, who would constantly push me, to go a little bit further than what I was comfortable doing. Try something new every single time. But he wouldn't do it in an authoritarian way of, do this or you fail or anything like that. And then, thank God, I was very fortunate, because the other key to this, the other key to being successful in your stretch goals, is surrounding yourself with people like you, Dre. Surrounding yourself with people like Paul, like Bob. In my case, when it was music, I had a stand partner that always helped me along. That always, not carry me, but held my hand and made sure that I got to where I was being pushed to go. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And you certainly see that in the gym. If you were to go in the gym and just start throwing weights around, you'd fail, and you wouldn't learn anything from the fail.
Monkey see, monkey do.
That's right.
Syndrome. Paul said something today in the gym, and I'm going to see can I get it right. Don't say what it is.
No, go right ahead. Lay it out.
Let me see can I get it right.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Do you like M&Ms? No. Not
Skittles.
Skittles. Do you like Skittles? Explain that to me. Well, I thought it was very cool. Do you?
First, I want to point out that the only two people who have made dating analogies in this show are the two people who are married. But we were talking a little bit about how to hire people, and I was talking to a president or CEO of a consulting company. And he says in every interview he asks the candidates how they eat a bag of Skittles.
Right.
And then when they answer, he asks them why. And the truth of the matter is it's a nonsensical question, but you can see whether someone actually tries to come up with an answer and whether they try to, go through the process of figuring out why they do something when they never have thought about it before. And that's really, when you're talking about an organization, Bob, I agree, it's all about culture, but I think there's kind of two aspects of culture. Most organizations, the culture they want and the culture they have. And very rarely do the two match up. And if you want the two to match up, you got to surround yourself with the right people, the people who are going to think about the questions, think about the answers, and buy into the process, or at least be part of creating what that process is. Because getting people to actually do what the organization is about is a very difficult thing, often flawed at the leadership level. So,
yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. But here's the dilemma. The dilemma is, if you can't find that culture, then I use the term you're in a sweatshop mentality. And
right.
So people will leave for two reasons. They leave a company because they don't like their boss, who obviously stifles them and micromanages them, or they're not in a company that's progressive and forward thinking to help motivate them both mentally and physically. And so for me, it's a hard marriage to find in a company these days, because most companies are so focused on driving financials and driving that top line revenue. They forget about people skills and
Right.
just expect them to follow a line.
It's fascinating. I do a lot of depositions in my work, where I prepare people who are employees of companies to be deposed. And typically they fall into two major categories. The people that are afraid to mess up, and those are the witnesses I hate because everything they're just worried about. And the other group are the people who love the company so much they want to make it succeed. And those witnesses are great, and you can tell within 5 minutes of meeting them which group they're in, and you can tell what the culture of the company is, regardless of what their mission statement is based on that interaction.
Yeah.
What do you find
Agreed.
that? What do you? We talked about another word, which is this spear, and
SPHERE, not SPAR.
you want me to spell that?
Well, I just want to be clear. We're talking about an orb, not a pointing stick.
Right.
So with that being said, now you guys see what I have to deal with every day. Now this is my life at 6 a.m. in the morning, except for Bob.
Yes, exactly. I'm an 8 a.m.er.
Yeah.
So we talk about accountability and peer pressure. You won't see me work out before 8 a.m.
Now you mentioned something that was you mentioned that word spear, SPHERE.
Yeah.
Give me your insight on that. You was the one that brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, there's two philosophies in my book when you look at driving objectives. You have to control your span of, you have to, it's your span of control. What your span of control is it's your inner circle of people that report to you or immediately have performance objectives that you want to translate into incentives or merit increases or whatever bonuses. And so that span of control is your inner circle to be able to hold people accountable. The next outer ring is your sphere of influence. And your sphere of influence is those people that actually help support you from other areas. And so I would say that, your daughter Cinnamon motivating us, in the gym and being able to drive us to be healthier, that is a person that's our sphere of influence because they're influencing the way that we're taking care of ourselves so we live longer so that we get to be with her longer. And so our kids are our sphere of influence. Our span of control is you, Dre, holding us accountable for coming in at that time of the day or lifting a certain amount of weight and working on isolating parts of our bodies to improve on muscle mass or tone or whatever it may be. That's exactly what it boils down to, and it's that simple, and it drives you personally.
Where do we find that people fall short? I mean, it sounds great because it sounds like it's coming from a work standpoint, but how would we get people to translate this into their everyday life, and what part of this three protocols have you put in your life?
Yeah, but we all fall short. I mean, so that's first. I mean, because we talked about failure is no option because you have to try. But in order to succeed, you have to continually have to try. So beast mode is getting to that point where you're trying so many times that you get beyond, that level of just meeting a normal expectation. It's above average. It's going beyond. And
Give me that point with you. Give me a moment that happened to you, that you went through all three phases. And then I asked David and I asked Paul. So give me an example of those three phases that you went through in your life.
Well, there's plenty of them. I mean, you can pick them either career-wise, professionally, or personally.
Let's do personally.
Going through a divorce, picking yourself up, putting your big boy pants on, and moving forward. Accepting the fact that you have differences, you deserve better, and setting a level of you deserve happiness is setting that example of putting yourself in beast mode, putting yourself out there. That there is somebody that would love you, and going beyond, just feeling like you're ordinary, feeling like you're special. And so it's really putting yourself out there, like I said, in the dating scene, and finding somebody that's truly going to love you and be compatible with you is a game changer.
Did you have to take a self-inventory? Any one of you guys can answer this question. based on these three ideas or these topics, did you during the transformations actually take an inventory of the three in yourselves and said, this is what I need to work on the most, and if so, which one was it?
Well, I think that depends if you're driving. If your personality is, if you're a driver, you're going to do a self-reflection. And so when you do self-reflection, typically you're harder on yourself than you should be. And so everybody takes, and looks at themselves in the mirror and says, who am I? Could I do better? And why do I deserve to be loved? And so, when you're at that point of realization of moving yourself forward, that's when you get in that beast mode of being able to, you deserve something better in life.
You was going to say something. What was you going to say?
No, I can't remember. But you had asked all three of us to share something,
Yeah.
and I can't point to any specific thing. And the reason why I can't point to anything specific is because, well, actually I already have. I mean, there's the example of the job that I just left. There's the example of my musical underpinnings.
What do you find your weakest part then is out of the three categories?
Well, before I get to that, this is something that happens every single day.
Yeah.
It happens. Sometimes it happens on a macro level. Sometimes it happens on a micro level. It happens every single day. And I actually think what I was going to say was you would raise something about being sort of self-aware and trying to be the best version that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I kind of want to get up on my personal pulpit and sort of preach from the soapbox and say, not like I'm any authority to suggest what's wrong with society today, but so often today, what I see from people, and I think if they just made a tiny change, if they and I defer to somebody like Paul, who I don't mean to embarrass you, but you really are a great leader, but it's somebody like that, somebody like Paul could direct you, but the biggest concern that I have is that we seem to have introduced this concept of consumerism into personal accountability, where where so many people are going around looking for what's going to make them the best version. How is somebody else? How is Bob going to make me the best version of myself? How is Paul going to make me the best version of myself? No. I make myself the best version of myself.
So it's the sharp way to accountability.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about two things. It's figuring out your values and doing everything you do should be related to those, whether you're talking about an organization or an individual. And where I see people fall short is they start analyzing things or getting in your head, but once you decide where you're going to go, just go. Don't think about it. If you got to mow the lawn tomorrow, don't spend all day thinking, shit, tomorrow I got to mow the lawn. No, get up and freaking mow the yard,
Yeah.
If you're going to go work out, go work out. If you're not, you're not. But don't say it's a value of yours if you're not going to do it. If you're an organization and you're going to say you're about something, make sure you're about it, or don't. But don't sit there and say you're about something and kind of brush around the edges. I mean, when you were talking about consumerism, I mean, that's really what it is we get caught in all these tangents that are just irrelevant,
What kind of tangents do you mean?
Well, I mean, it can be anything from what color shoes am I going to wear to, how am I going to look on a certain day. I mean, if that's your value, that's your value. If it's not, it's not. But live up to who you are and don't get caught in all the fluff.
David says something. I know this. I've heard this a lot when your name is brought up. Great leader. How does that make you feel? How do you respond when people say that? Because I even said it. I'm like, man, he's really good at what he,
I mean, I feel humbled, honestly, that I learned a long time ago in my life that I need to be careful what I ask people to do, because a lot of times I actually do it. So
you will.
So I mean, frankly, it's a quality I'll claim.
Okay.
But it's not an egotistical issue for me. It comes with a great responsibility, whether it's at home or at work. But I do kind of have that force of nature personality, for better or worse sometimes, and so I try to do it the right way.
I think that it's funny because, like I'm trying to tell our viewers, we get into some deep conversations, and a lot of my ideas come from the people that I am in contact with, but I'm also a firm believer that people, I think if I had to take all three of those topics and find out which would be the number one thing that over my years that I found with people that can't seem to stay in that mode and accelerate in life, is their inability to be accountable within themselves and take self-control. It's always, you said it on the social media thing, whine, whine, whine. How do you address people like that when you come across them?
Oh boy! So I think
Yeah,
all
it's a
three
tough
of
one.
us would have a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah, no question about it.
And it's dependent upon our personalities,
Yeah.
and I think our personalities are going to become very apparent. Me, I don't address things head on. I don't. I don't know why. I don't know why. I had a very dear friend growing up who used to say, "You can't lead by example. Sometimes you have to be forceful." Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. I just can't do that. I always resort to trying to lead by example, and I don't disagree with them, by the way. I think that's true. I think sometimes you can't lead by example. You have to be forceful. But my personality is such that if I were dealing with an individual who just refused to hold themselves accountable, my dad used to tell us something. He used to say, you guys have heard this, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? Okay. My dad always put a little spin on the end of that. He said, but you can give him salt, right?
Yeah.
Because if you give them salt, they'll start drinking. And so that's kind of the approach that I take. That's the approach that I take with people is, I sort of give them that salt, and I try to gently get them to be to be self accountable.
It really kills me when I see that, because I have to deal with people every day, and I think in my line of work, the biggest thing, and I never can come up with the solution to that. Like, you can get up every morning and go to work, but everything else in your life you don't seem to even focus on, except for the.
Well, that's the difference in personal priorities. I'm talking about what Dave just said. I'm more of a, hit it head on, lay it out with complete transparency. If you're underperforming, I'm going to let you know about it, but I'm going to follow it right up with, I'm going to support you. And so, and then follow it up with, I'm going to stretch you and I'm going to hold you accountable. And so those four things, if you can get them to see and buy into that concept, then you've won somebody over. They're going to trust you. They're going to try harder. And if they fail, they know they're not going to get fired or let go. They're going to continue to try, and they're going to finally succeed at some point.
Now, you said we didn't get to you when I asked Bob and Dave about one of their deepest moments that they were in that frame of mind. What about yourself?
I mean, there have been numerous times in my life where it's just as simple as just start putting one foot in front of the other, but the key to that is you got to know where you're going. So
Not always.
or at least the general direction.
That's right.
Right? I mean, I've gone
You may
through
not figure it out right away.
Right. I've
Yeah.
gone through a divorce also. I've had a career change that wasn't of my doing. So, but you've got to find your values and just live up to them. And I think, going back to the whole sphere of influence thing, I tend to not deal with the elephant in the room. We tend to meet on the sidewalk. So, so I, but I also surround myself with people that challenge me and make me grow. If someone can't do that in either my personal or professional life, then I can still be acquaintances and have fun with them, but it's not going to be a long-term
You know
fit.
how much to feed them. I call that feeding with the spoon. I know how far I need to deal with that person.
Well, I try to look at it more as a partnership in whatever it is we're doing, and and that sphere of influence goes both ways, right? And if somebody can't do that, or whatever, then that's when hard decisions have to be made, and those aren't always fun. But especially when it comes to work, because anybody who's managed anybody has had to make hard decisions regarding good people for the betterment of the organization, and that's just what has to happen sometimes.
What do you see happening now with all the stuff that we're going through? People not knowing who they are, no jobs, and I mean, get real. We're people are scared now.
People are getting rid of the stuff in their life that doesn't matter, and it's hard because everybody thought it did, and so some people are really struggling. Some people are thriving. Frankly, when adversity happens, I've heard from different books I've read, your struggles define your life.
Right.
And it's for two reasons. One, it means you care. You don't struggle if you don't care. And the other thing is it gives you the opportunity to own it and respond to it. And so watch what's happening right now. There's people that are thriving, even though it's hard, and there's people that are getting beaten down, and it's sad, but that's kind of partly what they've chosen to do in response.
That's why right there Paul's successful as a leader, as Dave just said.
Yep.
The depth of wisdom that he brings is much greater than a lot of folks.
But we also know he's funny too.
He's funny, but he's not pulling that card today yet.
Yeah. Bob, if I can, and I don't want to get us too far off topic, but again, I say this not wanting to embarrass you, Paul. I really don't. How long have you and I known each other? Maybe
6 months ish.
Yeah, call it that. Almost immediately, I recognized Paul as being somebody that number one, I could learn a ton from. Number two, as somebody who really stands out as being a great leader. And in addition to what you just said, I don't disagree with what you just said. But for me, what really, and again, we're talking about him like he's on the autopsy table, and we're like, my
right.
God, look at the size.
I
of
always
this
wanted
liver.
to hear my obituary before the day came, so let's go.
But it's your ability to sort of round out those edges. Okay, I was spoiled as a kid. My mom used to read us Greek myths, Greek and Roman mythology. Those were our bedtime stories.
I was in one of those stories too,
And I remember her telling us about the three fates. Okay, there was now I'm not going to reveal my age, but this was decades ago. There was Clothos, Atropos, and I can't remember who the third one was, but there were these three old ladies that sat at a loom. Right, you know what a loom is, where you've got the weave and the woof or the wharf, and one's job was to actually spin the thread. The other's job was to cut the thread, determine the amount of life that you had. And I can't remember the third one's name. I don't know. It started with an L, but I can't remember. But the point that I'm making is not about the three fates. It's about what the Greeks missed. The Greeks missed, in telling their stories of the three fates, they missed the fourth fate. And the fourth fate was that one that had 20/20 vision that allowed you to look back on what you had been doing wrong your entire life, right?
Right.
And Paul, one of the first things that I noticed when I met you, and as we started interacting was, boy, if only I had been doing that all along, things would have gone differently. Now, I don't regret things. I don't think you should go back and visit the past. I really don't. But I do find myself at times when I meet somebody like you, Bob, even when I meet somebody like you, you bring things to the table. Trey, you and I have had this conversation a million times. I learn from everybody that I interact with. And I don't take that knowledge and then go back and revisit and do the post-mortem on my own life. Rather, I look at it and I try to say, well, how can I get better? And one of the things that I absolutely have learned from Paul is sort of soften those edges. That's what makes, that in my mind, that's what makes a great leader, is being able to soften those edges. And what I mean by that is it has nothing to do with how you approach a topic, whether you're forceful, as you suggested, or whether you're passive like I am, but rather, how do you look at the totality of the circumstances and not, it's one thing to demonstrate anger, it's another thing to demonstrate rage. Right. It's another thing it's one thing to demonstrate pride. It's another thing to demonstrate, euphoric. Arrogance. That's just exactly. And I think one of the things that defines a great leader, is the ability to eliminate the rage, eliminate the arrogance, eliminate those sharp things, and really focus on the rounded corners. And quite frankly, that's something I haven't been able to master in the years that I've been doing this yet.
When I do that well, it's because I'm standing in my truth. You know, you got to find your space in the world and sit there. And if you, it's like boxing. You know, the most of the time the boxer that wins will be the one that's in the middle of the ring, and that's because he or she is not having to move as much. It's a lot more energy to run around. And if you're standing in your truth and you're doing what you're doing from the center of who you are and the center of the organization or whatever, then it becomes easy. It becomes powerful. It's peaceful. If you're running around trying to be something that you're not, trying to not have those vulnerable conversations in some level, then you're gonna pretend and you're not gonna be happy.
Do you find that people today are a little bit confused and maybe don't know how to express their journeys?
I think
Or maybe
people every day are that way, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe.
But I guess saying that maybe there's no place for them to go. Maybe the people that they picked as their role models and we should really start in the household, maybe there is nothing there. So what happens? What do they become, the whiners that manifest?
Well, I think people are lost in general right now for a lot of environmental influences because people have lost their jobs. We have, a lot going on in the political arena with the campaigns. We've got, a pandemic going on in the world. And so all those influences translate into how you feel about yourself, and it translates and permeates within your household. And so until you figure out, as Paul just said, what's your center? Center yourself. What's important? Reevaluate your priorities. People, should be doing it and should already have been doing that based on the fact that we just spent 4 months being cooped up in our houses. What was important?
Yeah.
Food, healthcare, and family. Nothing else mattered, right? And if you've got a fundamental religious-based faith, then you better lean on it and you better run with it, because that's as simple as it gets in life.
Wow. Now you see why I get up early in the morning and work out. When you have this kind of...
Except for Bob, he gets up at 8. He's the smartest one here.
I'm on West Coast time.
Yeah.
when you have this kind of knowledge coming at you every morning, man, it's really worth getting up. Before we wrap up, it was so beautifully spoken. I mean, it's almost like that should have been the closing remark. But I still I'm going back to what I saw on the Facebook message when we was group tapping and it was chatting, and it said wine, wine, wine. And I got to address that to you, Paul, because it was there and it's embedded. Why? Explain to me your concept when you said that. What were you thinking?
It's really just what Bob just said. If you start focus on the things that don't matter, pick something. You've got to do something in your day. You got to go to work. If you complain about it for the 2 hours before you go and the 8 to 10 hours that you're there and the 3 hours that you come home, you've just changed your whole day. But you're going to go anyway. Right. So do the things you have to do. Make sure that those things reflect who you are and who you want to be, and just do them. I mean, it's getting caught in your head and expending your energy on a bunch of crap that doesn't matter that makes life difficult. It's really, life is hard enough, but people make it so much more difficult than it needs to be.
We're dealing with now, this is a suicidal month, and we're dealing with a serious issue this month. And like I was telling the viewers, I personally have coming out with a new hoodie in recognition of this severe thing that's happening with depression, mental illness, and suicide. I'm pretty sure a lot of this has to do with that, the inability to take accountability,
or maybe too much accountability.
Yeah,
that's the flip side.
maybe too much on the plate. Then on top of that,
well, hold on. Let's assume that it's not too much accountability. and I feel like I'm the one who should address this, because we have two people that came in here to talk about leadership and one guy who came in here to talk about failure. And I'm the guy who came in here to talk about failure.
That's why there's three of us. Oh, Andre, there's four.
Yeah. Just like the Musketeers.
But I think this is an important point to make, and that is, look, this topic is something that's near and dear to me. Okay, and I know that a lot of people feel that frustration. Okay, and sometimes it's hard. Even for me, and given the unbelievable success that I've had that people would be envious of. Even for me, some days it's tough to get up and say, what is me? What is that trueness? And how do I go after that? And so I'll just offer this as a little an interim, I don't know what you would call it, a cheat. Okay. This is like a game cheat on a video game. Yeah, a life hack.
All right.
A life hack. Okay.
I'm paying attention.
All right, you ready? Here goes. Well, you don't need this. You Bob, you don't need this. Paul, you don't need this. Dre, you don't need this. But here's a life hack for the people that have done that searching like I have, as to what the hell, what am I even doing? Okay, and that is find somebody and hitch your wagon to them. I talked about it earlier today. I talked about that stand partner that I had that held my hand. She didn't pull me, she didn't push me. She held my hand and she allowed me to get beyond my comfort zone because somebody was demanding that I get beyond my comfort zone. Okay? Find somebody that you can hitch your wagon to. That is gonna I blasted the consumerism of allowing somebody else to make a better version of yourself. But sometimes if you're not prepared to make the better version of yourself, you have no choice. Mm-hmm. And to overcome that depression, to overcome that suicidal ideation and all that kind of stuff, sometimes you have to rely on the fact that we're human beings. And as human beings, I think generally speaking, we do care about each other. And we do want all of us to be better. We want to raise the level for everybody. And so I encourage the listeners out there that are more like me, that are not great leaders, like the two gentlemen sitting next to me, I would say reach out and find somebody that you can hitch your wagon to, that you can that is going to pull you along and at least in the interim help you get to be that better version of yourself than what you are.
Well, and I never meant to imply that's not important. I always joke that it takes a village to raise a Paul, and I mean, it's true, and I've got the greatest group of friends ever. I mean, we could have a whole show on how they've loved me through hard times, and they're my family, really, as well as my children. But I mean, we're not meant to be alone. Part of this is the sphere of influence goes both ways. It's who you influence, but it's mostly who influences you, and choosing those people wisely and well is critical.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Mike?
Very much so. No, I don't want to make light of National Suicide Month. Not that we're making light of it, but there are a couple clear delineations that we need to make sure of. One is mental health is a disease, and so beyond that, you have to be concerned with that environmental influence that negatively affects the person's choices to do certain things, or to mask with ingesting substances that are going to make them be in that state of mind. And so, first of all, it's a disease. Second of all, there are environmental factors and influences that some people are more susceptible than others, quite frankly. And then, again, it all goes back to your, centering yourself of truth, or as Paul put it, your center of truth is clearly you've got to define who you are, what your convictions and values are, and stand firm and not let all those other things take its toll.
That's an amazing point, Bob. That's an amazing point.
That is, once again, beautifully said. I see why I get up in the morning to do what I do. And you're right. All of these things should be taken into account, especially during now. I was, like I said, I was watching TV and I was hearing about all of these teenagers that were, you know, committing suicide and have problems, and you know, and I can't help but to feel that it's because of everything that we're going through, and that's what this show is about. It's about really trying to make a difference and trying to bring my quest is to bring people on the show that impact. And I know if they can impact me, they definitely can impact the masses out there. With what we're going through now with that, like I said, we're are coming out with a limited edition Beast hoodies to acknowledge the mental illness, the suicide, and the depression, and a lot of that can be changed if you hit your wagon. If you can't talk to somebody, hit your wagon to somebody. A lot of it is because of environmental stuff. A lot of it is because of maybe we don't have the leaderships, and maybe there's no one there to take the accountability for us. We need to hitch that wagon. Today the message is find someone to talk to. Share your ideas, share your dreams. Find someone that you can hitch that wagon to, that can hold your hand and not make you feel bad, but make you feel good about yourself. Look at your kids, look at your grandkids, look at your wife, look at your girlfriends or something, and say, you know what, I'm here, I'm going to make a difference. No matter what we're going through, we can pull in together, because like you said, Paul, we all are humans, and it's in our nature to care for one another. And I think if we start to do that, and I'm not a doctor, but I really think if we put those things in play with what we talked about today, and these values, and just allow somebody to listen to you. We all have a story. Allow somebody to listen to you, and hopefully that's one piece of the puzzle that can stop the depression, that can put a halt a little bit to what the madness that we're going through.
Because obviously this is something that's very near and dear to me, particularly today and everything that I went through last night.
Yeah.
Wake up every morning, set those stretch goals, know that you're going to fail, accept the fact that you're going to fail, then start evaluating your span of control and your sphere of influence.
There you go.
Take notes. If you have to physically take notes,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then find somebody like Paul that you can hitch your wagon to.
I think some people are just afraid of fear. I think sometimes if people have their expectations set so high, because I see that in the gym, they're set so high that when they fail, they don't recover. They actually spend a little bit more out of control. Does that make any sense?
Well, there's
No,
two
it does.
concepts, and it does make sense, because failure can paralyze you. That's number one. And so that's why you have to get up and try, because failure is no option. And so the second piece of that is, when you do fail, it's because maybe you did set the stretch goal too high. That doesn't mean that you failed, because you got up off the couch. Just because you got up off the couch, it didn't lift 100 pounds, doesn't mean that you failed. You failed, you succeeded because you got off the couch, and maybe you did 50 pounds instead of 100. That's a stretch goal.
And then I think really retraining yourself when you get up. You know what I used to hear from people, in the morning, and it's kind of like what you said. Damn, I hate going to work. Damn, I hate this. Damn, I hate this. And I remember looking at a guy one time, and I said, he had a good job, and I said, why do you work? He goes, because I want to be rich. I said, but you bitch every freaking day. So is it really worth you getting up every day? You're miserable from the moment you get up, but you got a great job. But you bitch from the moment you get up, and now it's 5 o'clock and you're with me, and you're still bitching.
Yeah, that's a state of mind. Some people have that perpetual cycle of being in that state of mind, and sometimes they don't know that that's how they are. And so, it goes back to, I forget what the earlier part of the conversation was. If you're in that perpetual state of mind of complaining all the time, get out and do something different, because the money's not worth it.
Do you think that some people just can't do nothing different? That they're
it's tough to
making
say.
$1 million isn't worth the price if you're miserable.
Well, it's tough to say because I'm at a point now where, regardless of my own personal finances, I know that if all hell broke loose and everything were to go to hell in a handbasket, okay, I have a network around me. You guys wouldn't let me fail, right? I've only known you guys for at the outset 6 months, and I think 6 months is being too generous. I actually think it's 4 months. I think it's June.
Okay.
June, maybe July for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't have gotten up at 8 a.m. this morning if it wasn't for you guys. Why do you think I looked at you when you walked out the door this morning? Oh, you're done already?
Yeah.
But already I know that I've developed this network. This is going back to your point about it takes a village to raise Paul. I mean, I know that I've got this network, so I can have the temerity to say a statement like, "Well, if it doesn't make you happy, then walk away." But I'm not in a position right now where it is bleak, and I don't feel like I could walk away. Right?
Glad we got to hear temerity.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's a big Scrabble word.
Exactly.
The
dictionary.
That's worth at least 100 points.
I hear what you're saying, but it's actually really simple. People can talk all they want. What people value is what they spend their time, energy, and money on. It's that simple. If you want to know what someone's about, look at those things.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
never thought about
I
it.
know, I'm telling you.
Just look at what they got.
Yeah.
I think are we still on camera? Yes.
All right, it's time for you to wrap it up.
Okay,
Come on, put a
that's
bow
it.
on it.
That's it for today. Let's get out of here and go. I gotta eat. Is the food ready? We're
Yeah.
done.
All right.
We've all enjoyed the cube sticks. They're all gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
They're all gone.
We
We
didn't
ate them all.
We didn't leave you any.